Okay, we're at 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan.
Here.
Counselor Lavin.
Ever present.
Counselor Peeler.
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Here.
Counselor Gilat.
Here.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Here.
Counselor Morocco.
Here.
Counselor Whitfield. Mayor Valentino.
Here. There you go. Perfect timing. Good evening. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing for overriding the property tax cap override. And I'd like to open that public hearing now. If anybody would like to come to the podium and speak on that issue, you're more than welcome. Since no one's come to the podium, I'll call that public hearing closed. And I'd like to make a motion, because we're talking about that same issue, to add a resolution, local law number /2024, overriding the property tax levy limit. My motion is to add it to the agenda. It's not for the overriding the tax cap at this point. So I'm making that motion. I would like a second. Second by Councilor Petropoulos. Discussion on adding it to the agenda. Clerk, please call the roll on amending the agenda.
Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Counselor Peeler.
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Aye.
Counselor Gilat.
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Aye.
Counselor Morocco.
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, since we just have discussion, next I'm going to go into the motion I just made. I'm going to make a motion for the City of Geneva to override the property tax levy limit enacted by the State of New York, and I so move. Second.
I'll second.
Councilor Gilat, seconded. Discussion. Councilor Levin.
I'd like to see us table this till after we get to the budget, because if we do it, the goals of the budget were, as enumerated last week, we won't need this. If we pass it now and we can't come to agreement on the budget, the manager's budget takes precedence at the end of the month, and we're left in a position where the taxes can go up without our vote. I just don't think this is necessary till after we settle and see where the budget amounts will be.
Okay, so that's a motion, I take it?
It's a motion.
To table?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do I have a second for tabling? Councilor Whitfield's second it. Clerk, please call the roll on tabling the resolution.
Counselor Brennan.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin.
Aye.
Counselor Peeler.
Nay.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Nay.
Counselor Gilat.
Nay.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Nay.
Counselor Morocco.
Nay.
Counselor Whitfield.
Aye.
Mayor Valentino.
Nay.
Motion carried.
Okay, back to the original.
I'm
Councilor Peeler.
sorry, motion defeated.
Councilor Peeler?
Yeah, I suspect that, first of all, this is like my sixth time I've had to raise this tax cap or offer to raise it or permit it to be raised. It's not really a blank check to just spend willy-nilly from what I understand it. And according to the state professionals that have advised us, and you sit at NICOM meetings, councils across the state who stay within their tax cap vote to lift the tax cap as good measure. So you can later on in the year, you can vote to rescind that lifting if you do stay under the tax cap. And I suspect that even if we held the budget to Councilor Lavin's flat, no increase, $2-something million price spending cuts, we still would receive a motion, or still would be recommended by the state to lift the tax cap. So I have no problem with doing this. We've done it for 5 years. We've stayed under the tax cap for all those years.
I think we already voted on this, didn't we?
No, we have not voted on this.
No,
This
we
was a
voted on
public hearing.
tabling.
Oh, at the table.
Okay, Anybody else? Okay, I think taking staff's recommendation and my experience of overriding the task cap in previous years, I think it makes good sense. No further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan,
This is for overriding the tax cap.
Well, I did,
You had it?
aye.
Go.
Aye. I vote
Okay.
aye to override.
All right.
Counselor Lavin,
No.
Counselor Peeler,
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi,
Aye.
Counselor Gilat,
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos,
Aye.
Counselor Morocco,
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield,
Nay.
Mayor Valentino,
Aye.
motion carried.
Next, we have a variety of things we're going to look at, but I'd like the city manager to present kind of what we asked her for last week, her and our comptroller. I don't think she did this by herself. And I thank the department heads for being here also. Appreciate that.
So you vote once in a while. would you?
All right. So what I provided to you, and I do have a few extras if people, others want them. Is what you had requested. So what, and I can't just say the comptroller, the department heads also weighed in on this, and we've had discussions over the last 5 days to get there. And so what you see before you is the 2024 levy was 8.4 million. The proposed 2025 was 10.1 million. A 5% levy increase. 2025 target levy is 8.85 million. 6% would be 8.93 million. Difference from proposed 1.3 and 1.22. Well, 2.3. Your 2024 budget was 19 million. Or 19.5 million. The proposed one is 22.3 million. With a 5% levy increase, it will be 20.9 million, and 6% is 21 million. It would be a budget increase of 7.6% or 8.1%, respectively. 2024 tax rate, 1726. Proposed tax rate was 1397. If you decide to go with a 5% increase, the tax rate goes to 1216, 6%, 1228. Under 5%, that's 29.5% decrease in your tax rate. 6%, it's 28.9% decrease in your tax rate. We often talk about the median value home. For a 5% levy increase, your median value home will see a $267 savings from 2024 to 2025. And at 6%, they'll see a $250 savings. Now what I'm going to do, and I have department heads that are going to help, as well as the business achievement, I'm reading it while I'm talking, improvement district. I will share the recommendations that we have put forward to reduce from the proposed budget to get to the 5% growth rate and then the 6% growth rate. And I realize I think we may have inverted those. So under the first one is the city manager's training for all staff. We will reduce the amount of funding for all staff training. We'll rely on some free training services and provide fewer trainings than we had in the past. The city manager safety coordinator, it's proposed to reduce that. We'll remove the position of safety coordinator, return to the previous system of providing a stipend to one staff to coordinate it, and working with all the departments to continue their safety teams and safety operations. You'll remember that the safety coordinator was under one-time funding, which means we're taking that money from fund balance. We'll take that money again, still from fund balance at cost savings, but we'll apply it to other one-time expenses. So the reduction amount there is $52,100. The reduction of the training for all staff is $5,000. So I'm going to pause there if there were any questions or anything on that, and then we'll move to the comptroller. I think we're good to move to comptroller.
I believe so, unless you see hands raised.
I'll watch for you, Mayor. So the comptroller, I'll let Adam talk about this, but basically we're going to reduce some of the amount for the electronic timekeeping. This has been a project that we've been working towards for many years. There's lots of layers to this, not just the product, but how we get there because of how we do payroll currently and how we do payroll in the future, which is also a negotiated benefit. So Adam?
Thank you. And we did encumber some funds from, or we will encumber some funds from 24 also. So we're able to knock that number down just a little bit. And the overall kind of look at this is it's not life or death. It's whether we kind of move forward and get away from doing everything on paper and getting everything electronic. It's a really nice thing to do. It's a time saver in the long run. It goes along with the current software system we have. As I mentioned before, it's an added module that we currently have. It's just not being utilized at this point. So we would have to undergo training and you know, different reports have to be created and things like that. Long term, it's a very good benefit. You know, with this cut, we will still try to get this done, you know, in other ways, encumbering the funds, like I mentioned, and even if we have to do little by little, we can probably get there. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight anyway, and so that's kind of the plan for that. Yep.
Counselor Peeler, yep.
So, thank you. And just for clarity, because you got to forgive me, this is the first time we're seeing this, so I'm like skipping ahead.
Sure, yeah.
I'm trying to ingest it as quickly as I can and digest it. You're on line 3 of the items, correct?
Yes.
Now,
Oh, sure.
I have one quick question that's fundamentally like defines how this whole thing is to be read. The reduction amount column and the revised allocation amount column, is the revised allocation amount what we'll be spending now or what we were spending in the original proposed budget?
So that'll be what the line item is in your budget. There is one, we realize there's one error, and when we get there, we'll let you know when we
Okay,
get there.
I thought, I'm trying to digest it because it seems like some of them are like blank and some of them
So if
are
they're blank,
more than the other line, so it's like, did
that's
we
where the
raise the
error is.
budget?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if they're blank, that means that that budget line is zeroed out.
Okay, so there is certain areas that are zeroed out, and there's certain areas that are still partial allocated, and some
Yes.
areas that are maybe oops.
Well, and there's some areas, oh, there's one oops.
One is thumb.
There are areas where there might be other things in that line item. So use computer costs. We might have said, we're not gonna do software this year. We're still gonna purchase tablet with the current software. So you'll see software gone, but tablet's still in there.
All right,
So-
thank you. That was my only question, and I understand.
Yep. And the at the top of it page, it should say to achieve a 6% growth rate. All of these things would be reduced. The next, we'll get later to a 5% growth rate. What additionally would need to be reduced?
And are you still using the Tyler software?
We are. Yep.
So this whole entire sheet is a 6.
Yep. Anything for the comptroller? There's only
No,
one
but
there.
I just, I'm listening to all the pages turn, and I know this is a lot to digest.
Yep.
But I think if we just follow along with staff, we're going to start at the top, and we're 3 in, and
Yep.
we'll just keep going through them, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll walk you down some of these. So the other thing I should note is these are done in rank order by the department heads. So if you were to look at these, the top list is the thing that they would like the most to stay. The bottom of the list are the lesser things. Not that they want to lose any of these things, but that's how it is done. So we move into DPW with the lakefront building shade structure. And this is under the Buildings and Grounds Division of DPW. That shade structure is $30,000. Again, this is one-time funding that we would put towards something else in one time. The shade structure is from 2018. It is breaking from time to time, so this would be a total replacement. Without this funding, we'll continue to repair as needed, replace it when we can, but but it would not be a full replacement of that structure. I'm gonna go through all the DPW, Joe, and then have you kind of comment. Next is DPW. This is also from 7110, which is Buildings and Grounds. Outside contractor for vegetation maintenance. This removes that additional contractor. How we'll continue to operate is our staff will continue to weed and take care of the parks in the areas that they are. We do not have professional landscapers or arborists on staff, but we will do what we are doing now and try to maintain as close to current levels as we can. We might have to revise and look at doing things a little differently, but the other side to this is just working with the community to understand that we don't have those professionals, and so we'll do to the best of our ability without that funding. The next one is DPW software, computer costs. This is in the our code enforcement division. This would move, so they had wanted additional software and tablets. This is kind of what I was talking about before with computer costs. This removes the software component but gets the tablets so we can start working with them. We have some funding this year to actually purchase some of those tablets, so it splits it a little bit differently. And we'll also have to have some kind of service in the field so they can use those tablets and access all of the database. They don't currently have that system, so they'll continue with the tablets, but the software we won't implement at this time. The tree inventory, that comes out of the engineering budget. The last inventory was completed in 2015. Without this being in the budget, we will not be as competitive for New York State DEC urban and community forest grants. It is recommended that we do an inventory every 5 years. We have over 200, we receive 250 to 300 complaints per year. We will continue to work with those complaints, but we will not do a inventory in 2025. Also, out of the same budget line item is the relocation study. That is looking at our facility in the GEDC building and where DPW holds that, looking at the potential of a future facility. This removes that funding. We will not be studying that in the current year. We'll hold off, continue to internally review the study that is completed by the IDA around the GEDC, and continue to repair the necessary work that we have to. Also, from DPW engineering, an administrative aid position. This was an additional FTE to support FEMA paperwork as well as the working supervisors. We'll continue operations as is right now, and we'll make do without that. The final DPW piece is the asphalt roller, and we're removing this piece of equipment for 2025. We would wait for a future year to replace this 20-year-old piece of equipment. We'll continue to pay repair and maintenance costs on it at this time, but it would be removed out of the budget. Joe, is there anything else that you want to add or questions for Joe on these items?
Questions for Joe? I'm good. The only question I would have is on that, the lakefront. When we talk about the shade structures, because I keep seeing this over and over again, who maintains, and this is not for the budget, but who maintains the Adirondack chairs?
The Adirondack chairs are part of a program where people had paid money to, in memorial or in memory of people. So the DPW buildings and grounds, if they get broken or destroyed, we pick them up. We haven't replaced any if they get destroyed.
Okay. Have any gotten destroyed?
Yeah, people vandalize them.
Okay.
We save the plaques for the families.
That's funded by the GCP, right?
Initially, I believe it was.
And if they need to be repaired, they have a fund for that in the Geneva
Correct.
Community Project.
I suppose DPW has not, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, city manager?
All right, we're gonna go over to the police department. In the police department, we're removing one of the replacement vehicles for one of the cars. We will continue to replace another car. You'll see in the impact of this, we are trying to get our vehicles on a regular rotation. We also have 2 vehicles that are giving us challenges that are new vehicles. And so not having this when we have vehicles that are getting serviced regularly means that we have a challenge maintaining the rotation. We don't want to have the same vehicle driving the entire time. And by entire time, I don't mean the entire shift. I mean the 24 hours of a shift, of all the shifts. So with this, we will delay replacement by a year. We will look at the potential of trading in those 2 vehicles while they're newer and can maybe bring in some market value. We'll need to replace them, but perhaps there's a way to do this so that we can continue to maintain the fleet better, although we'll be down 1 new vehicle. And then the second piece is actually in the DPW buildings and ground budget, but it's requested for the police department, and that is range repairs. So the city owns land off of County Road 6, where the police department operates a range. That range has been there at least since the 60s. The range has not seen many upgrades in the last 20 years. So firearm proficiency is something that we want to continue to work with our police officers and is extremely important. But the range is in disrepair. And so what this was going to do is fund resurfacing that range. We will not do that in 2025. We'll hold off to do that in the future. And that's it for the police department. If there are other questions, the chief
Questions
is
for
here.
the chief? Counselor Peeler?
It's not necessarily for the chief, but he can answer it. So when I buy a car, I like to negotiate. Like I talk to the salesman, and then he says, "Oh, I don't know. I got to go talk to my boss." And then he comes back to me and says, "I don't know. I got to go talk to the sales manager." And it could take like a day to buy a car. So how long does it take to buy a police car? Do you have to be like, "I don't know. I got to talk to my boss"?
So it can typically take 6 to 8 months. A lot of different factors come into play. Availability is one of the big ones. We ran into that issue, and that was part of the reason why we went with the Dodge Durango platform. They were cheaper, and they're also available, readily available. And then we also have to wait for all of our emergency equipment to come in, and then also for the upfitter to install it. So it could take 6 months, 8 months, could take 10 months.
So the turnaround is more than just like a day.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And
They're
Counselor,
not right. I didn't know that, and I don't know if anyone else did, but I think it's curious to know those things. So
And-
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Counselor, I just wanted to add that in terms of like negotiating, it's their state bid prices, so we don't the time that Chief is talking about is really just the time of getting that vehicle from where it is to us.
Okay.
And
So it's not-
upfitting and all
right,
those
so-
things.
I understand.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I don't know, I saw a Prius, it was on
Right.
sale, we can get some
Yeah.
lights on that, no?
You
Okay.
can buy it.
Not
And I
really.
take it serious, sir. So we appreciate all this work, and thank you for all this information.
Yep, thank you.
Counselor Brennan?
I have to ask, what are these, are they all Dodge Durangos? Because they don't look very healthy here.
No, currently we have 5 Dodge Durangos in our fleet, the newest, or the oldest one being a 2020. That one has given us the most problems.
Yeah.
That one does not stay running all the time, and at 28 to 30,000 miles, it did require a new motor. That was off the road for about 6 months.
How, if you were to buy a new police vehicle tomorrow, what brand would it be?
We're looking at the Ford Explorer. The availability with Fords have changed a little bit, and I think they're a little bit more cost effective than the Chevy Tahoe, for example.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Were you going to talk him into Toyota, Counselor?
Well, I don't think I'd get very far, but I think that might be worth
And
looking at.
And I do think that the fleet management that we had talked about in the prior meeting, that comes into play here.
Yes.
That helps, again, using all that data to kind of narrow it down so that the chief isn't looking at every single possibility. It's narrowed down to, okay, here's the best availability is this, the best price is this, and kind of going from there. So we're hoping that this fleet management software will really contribute to a lot of these issues that we're having.
Appreciate that, thanks.
Counselor Morocco?
Does the state mandate which vehicles that you get, or do you have a choice? How does,
They do not mandate. We have a choice.
Yep.
and you have, what, 2 or 3 different choices?
So there's a state bid, and you have to stay within the state bid. So whatever manufacturers and agencies perform under the state bid, we can choose from.
Chief, excuse my lack
Yes.
of memory, but I seem to remember our shooting range, I thought we started going to the county. Just help me understand what happened there.
Oh, we did not. So it's my understanding that when the county was building that range, that the city opted out of contributing to that. The way I look at it, that the city range, it's an asset to the city. There's a lot of reasons why we like to utilize the city range as opposed to transporting all of our items to the county range.
Okay, thank you. Good. Anybody else? Thank you, Chief. Back to you, City Manager.
All right, we're going to the fire department as the alarms go off. So on the fire department, the first one, we're reducing the number of gear that we would be purchasing, the turnout gear. About 2 years ago, I believe, we started this, if not 3 years ago, where we are going through replacing 80 sets over 5 years. This will reduce it by 3 sets, which means we'll have to make up for those 3 sets later on. And so that's the piece of that. The reason we need to get the turnout gear on a better rotation is because we have 80 sets that needed to be replaced. And so we're continuing to work through that. With this reduction, we won't be able to work at the pace that we had planned. It may take a little longer to get there. We'll continue to purchase those sets, but that is a piece of it. The next is also in the fire department. This is the simulator. It's a fire extinguisher simulator. Currently, we rely on real extinguishers for training, and there's some drawbacks to that. It is costly. We have to refill those or replace those, and they can pose safety risks. A simulator allows repetitive hands-on practice without the ongoing expense or potential hazards, and it also provides a controlled learning environment. Without this, we'll just continue to operate as we are and look at requesting this in future years. And then the Jaws of Life, this is where there is a challenge with the revised allocation. That's not the correct amount from the budget book. The chief let us know that, so we'll update that. But we are saying reduce that line 2029, both for the simulator and Jaws of Life, by those amounts. The Jaws of Life could have serious consequences when we don't replace that equipment. Older equipment is used more, may not be as powerful or reliable. We do have this current equipment. We just would not upgrade it in 2025. We'd upgrade it in the future. And that is all I have for fire, but I will have the fire chief come up if there's questions.
I just have one question. And so the fire simulation budget line, which is 2029, right? On item 2029. So it says that the current allocation is still, there's still a $46,800 budget line. Is that for other simulation things that we're budgeting for, or what is that money being spent on if not a fire simulator?
Yeah,
So-
so line item,
Go ahead.
2029 is the line item for all of our equipment purchases. And
Okay.
that's just gonna reduce it. There's an error in that one block there.
So both 2029 items are the error lines.
I get it.
And
I get it. So there's a duplicate, and that's why there's an issue, maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
The numbers on the right-hand column are not correct.
Correct.
Yep.
The reduction is correct.
Correct.
Yep.
I mean incorrect. I understand.
Yep, perfect.
Thank you, Chief.
Anybody else for the chief? Thank you, Chief.
All right. Moving to planning and economic development. The first one, we just wanted to show that you have already reduced that $10,000, and we're putting that in part of the reduction. And then the other piece is grant writing. We had allocated additional funding for grant writing. This removes a small portion of that, so we may not be able to go after as many grants, but it does remove likely another grant application from that. And I don't know if you have questions for
I'm
Director
looking
West?
left and right. Nope, keep moving.
All right. Next is recreation. So the rec van, we currently have a van that's 11 years old. At one point, we had 2 vans, but we did take our 23-year-old van out of service in 2023, so we are down to just our 11-year-old van. Reducing this means we will not be purchasing that van in 2025. we'll look at purchasing it in a future year. And then the next recreation item is a senior gold program. This is programming that we do in partnership with the YMCA. By removing this funding, we would remove that line item as well, and it would remove senior programming partnership with the YMCA. It would eliminate offerings to over 125 city seniors and 75 outings, over 2,000 facility visits by the city seniors. So it would remove that program, our contribution to that program. And that's what I have for rec.
Any questions?
Director Sharman's here.
Okay, thank you.
So the next two are reduced workforce and attrition. So what that'll look like is these are two positions that will be held vacant for 2025. It does not mean there's a particular position. What it will mean is that until there are 3 vacant positions, there are 2 vacant positions held. I'm going to use this table over here. I'm not saying that this is how it would work, but since they're all sitting in a row, I'm going to pick on them. So if the police department had a vacancy, and the rec department had a vacancy, and then the fire department had a vacancy, one of those vacancies would get filled. The other 2 would sit vacant until DPW had a vacancy. And then another one would get filled, and 2 others would be vacant. How we would determine on who gets filled first would be based on contractual obligations. It would be based on health and safety. If we have a certain position that has a higher risk, it would be based on departmental need and how many positions are in a department. So if DPW has 3 vacancies, our 2 vacancies, and then planning and economic development has 1 vacancy, we would weigh that out to see if it made sense to fill planning and economic development or if DPW needed to be filled first. With this, we estimate that salaries and benefits are traditionally between $90,000 and $100,000 per position. That's not just salary, that's benefits. And so you would reduce, because you'd have 2 vacancies year-long, by $90,000 each of those positions.
Counselor Gilat.
Amy, will this conclude your staff as well, as far as these reduction in workforce?
It would
Staff in City Hall? Well, you're talking about just police department. I know you're just examples, but.
It would
just for
include every
anybody.
city employee. So when I talk about staff, I never talk about City Hall or departments. We're talking all.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Yep. And it would come to those kinds of conversations if we had a comptroller vacancy. You know, he's sitting next to me too. We would have to weigh the risk and reward of what type of vacancy needs to be
Yeah,
filled
understood. I
first.
just want to make sure that.
Yep.
Counselor Peeler.
This is just for clarity, so I understand this portion of the modifications. Is there 2 current vacancies now? And that's why we've selected this as a 2 number.
There are more than 2 current vacancies.
Okay, so we're establishing like a 2 vacancy rolling hiring freeze, essentially. It's gonna be a rolling
Yep.
2 open spots.
So
Like
when we-
musical chairs with 2 open chairs.
Yep. When we go into 2025, we'll look at what vacancies are there and we'll continue to keep 2 open. It will
Okay.
mean there's some impact. One of the things that we do at the police department right now, and we've started, is before academy sometimes now, we bring in the officer. They might do some field training. In the past, we didn't do that. We waited till academy. We changed that practice. We may have to look at changing that practice back because of how we're doing the rolling vacancy.
Basically, because I don't necessarily understand how you guys think and present information, I was wondering if this was gonna be like we had to wait for a resignation before this took effect.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I think of attrition, like you gotta wait for someone to actually
Yep.
leave.
Yeah, so we will wait and see what is happening, and then once people leave,
Okay.
we'll continue to hold them.
All right. Thank you.
I know HR isn't here, but do we know how many planned retirements we have
Yeah.
coming in 2025?
We do not have many.
Okay.
The challenge with planned retirements is we have, depending on the union, many of them have to give a year's notice, but they can give a year's notice every year until they actually retire.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
we get the same letter many times.
Anything else?
And then the next one is looking at sales tax and where we were projecting sales tax. Very conservatively, this is a little more aggressive, but we would project an increase in sales tax of $200,000. How we're doing that is looking at where we've trended through the end of August. We still don't have, although they did the report last year on today, we don't have the third quarter report, but we're hoping to get it. We are following where we're trending at this time.
Question?
This is a
Councilor?
comment, I don't particularly like this. And here's why. Because we wanted a reduction in spending. And this is an addition of revenue. This is a ledger adjustment on the other side of the ledger. So this really isn't a reduction in spending. This is just manufacturing a new number to make it seem like we've got more revenue on the revenue side. So I hope you're right, that we're gonna get right, because this is a gamble, not just a general, not to use harsh language. I don't have another language. I don't have the best words.
That's okay.
Right? We're taking a chance on these numbers.
It's
So
similar-
I do hope you're right.
And it's similar to, I know some of you wanted to look at fund balance and tapping into that. It's a similar conversation with fund balance where you can tap into it, but you also have to hope that on that you're not taking a risk and something else happens. With this, I think we've seen the progression. With this amount and what we've already projected into it, we're at where we expect to be at the end of year this year. If not slightly below that still with this. So it is volatile. It's
Yeah.
definitely an elastic risk. Many of our revenues are.
Okay.
And
All
so-
right. Well, if you're comfortable putting it on there, I consider this like having a proposal before you got the ring. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, you're taking a big risk here.
Yeah, I agree. It is more aggressive than we normally go. We go much more conservative, but based on where we're at, we are projecting that. I don't know, Adam, if you have any.
Yeah, I was just going to add that it is, it's more aggressive than the city has been in the past.
Yeah.
It's a very reasonable number for us to hit. What it does do is it limits your ability to kind of make up for other things later in the
Right.
year. So this is kind of,
Well,
there's,
that's why I brought
Yeah,
it up, because
yeah.
from my understanding, and I've been looking at about 8 years worth of proposed budgets versus like resolved, finalized budgets, we do a very good job at underestimating sales tax. So when we get that final number, it's like getting that perk at the end of the year. This is kind of like, maybe we should play it close to the cut to get
Yep.
that money. But we've always almost relied on that conservative budgeting, which we appreciate.
Yeah.
So
and historically, it's, in my opinion, been the way to go because it can just fall off the table. It can just drop to hardly anything.
All right.
And so it's a reasonable number. I never want to, increase revenue. We didn't want to
Yeah.
have to do it, but, to get to this 1.3-ish number, we thought this was kind of a wise way to go so we could still keep some of the things in the budget.
all right,
accomplish
I
those.
appreciate that. And an unrelated comment is please buy your lumber at 84 Lumber instead of Lowe's in Waterloo, so Ontario County gets the sales tax.
Or Lowe's in Canandaigua.
But that's a lot. Okay,
I'm kidding.
84 Lumber is right down the street.
I'm joking.
It's true though; they would get the sales tax. You're not wrong.
So if we're good with this, I'm gonna go on to the bid.
Yep.
So the bid budget, has two different lines that we provide funding to, and it outside of assessment district funding. And so in these, one is economic development support. We've provided $15,000 in the past. We would remove the economic development support from the city to the bid. We would continue to function with as much in-house. That doesn't mean we wouldn't have a partnership with the bid. It just means that we would not be using Cindy funding for that. And then we would reduce maintenance services further, which is $15,000. We had, similar to all the other budgets, we had already reduced some of our funding for the BID. This is a further reduction beyond that. We had already talked about removing weed eating, hardscape mowing. So the things that they were doing to contribute would not occur. That's something that DPW would have to absorb and work through, but they would have to move forward with that. The bid did provide a proposal that all of you have as well, that outlines how these impacts will hit their budget. And Catherine's here if there are questions on this one.
Questions, anyone? Okay. Can we hear the next two line items, please? And then I have a comment to kind of move forward here.
So if you were to go with a 5% growth rate instead of 6%, so that gets you to that different number that we had talked about at the beginning. You would also need to reduce these two additional items, which would be the tree removal. We would suggest that you reduce it by 50%. So you would only remove half of the trees that we do. I will say currently we are not doing all of the tree removals we should in any given year. So reducing, not quite meeting what we should be doing by half means that we're going to continue to get more complaints. It is very complaint-driven system at this point. We will respond to complaints in storm work only, even further. We try to be proactive, but this reduction would mean we're completely reactive. And I will just jump to, since there's only two, the IT position. You would also remove the IT position. That's a shared position between the city of Canandaigua. That would remove that. We would leave funding in for extra help. So each summer, IT has an intern. We pay the intern about $5,000 to assist Peter and Zach in doing whatever they need. We would continue to offer that, but we would not hire a full-time employee to be shared with Canandaigua.
Councilor Pila?
This is real brief. Are those two columns swapped in figures? Because it looks like we're reducing 5,000, but we're continuing 35,000. But you said we're continuing to pay the 5,000.
Yep, they're swapped.
Okay.
Good catch. Adam and I have reviewed this so many times, so every time there's something like that,
I'm
we're
not
like,
throwing shade. I'm just like,
No.
it just, my spider sense was tingling.
he's fixing it as we go. Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you, City Manager, Comptroller, and staff for this work that you were asked to do last week. And we have,
Can we straighten that
Hold on.
last funding thing out?
He's doing it, he changed it just now.
he flip-flopped.
So
I
you
know,
would
but is it
reduce it.
flip-flopped?
It is flip-flopped. You would
Because
reduce.
they're talking about a reduction,
You would reduce the IT position by $34,000,
And there'd be 5 remaining.
and there would be 5,000 remaining. It's
And for
flipped.
the intern.
Yep, that would be for your
That's,
intern.
extra
the only reason why I
help.
knew there was flip-flops is because the notes explained it.
Yeah.
Yes. Look
Good
at
notes,
that.
good notes.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you,
Yeah.
Peter.
Good
Okay,
notes.
so we have some options in front of us, and I guess I'm gonna look to council for a little bit of direction here, and I'll give you a couple suggestions. One is a 5% reduction, the other one is a 6% reduction. On the first page, you see the impacts of both of those reductions. On the subsequent pages, you see the individual impacts as you go line item. The other option is the floor is open to make individual adjustments on any one of the line items that are presented to us. So I'm looking for maybe a raise of hand or some input, or we can go around the horn and give the individual comments, if we would like to do 5%, 6%, or go after individual line items. So, Councilor Morocco.
I got one question. What you just proposed here was for a 6% reduction, is that correct?
5.
With the la-
Yes.
Yeah,
And
with
so everything except for the last two items would be for 6% tax levy increase over 2024.
Increase, not reduction.
Correct. That's what I,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I apologize. That's
No,
what I-
Very good.
no, I
probably-
just want to make sure
I
we're,
probably said it wrong.
yep. So everything except for those last two would result in a 6% levy increase over 2024. If you do the additionals, then it would result in a 5% increase over 2024.
And we're using those two other things.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
Councilor Peeler, go ahead. Pleasure of council.
yep, so I appreciate your options, and I will tell you my opinion of
Yep,
those
please
options.
do.
I think I'd like to accept all of these, and I appreciate everybody that put added input. And is there a document with the 5% that you can hand out too? Because this is the 6%. Do you have a document with the 5%?
It's all the same,
5
plus those two at the end.
On the first page, you'll see the 5% and 6%.
Yes. So it's everything plus the IT position and the DPW tree service would be taken out of the budget.
Oh, okay.
proposed budget.
I'd like to accept everything on these sheets. I don't have any questions, and I appreciate all the last minute kind of request for this. If you guys all pulled this together in basically less than a week.
Any other comments? Councilor Brennan?
Among the thoughts I have to say that I would like to accept this also with one exception, and that is the grant writing, which is a reduction of $5,000. I would put that back in because it seems to me that that contributes to economic growth at some level, in some way. And I realize that we're interested in reducing spending, but we also have to pay attention to, in any way we can, to increase revenue. And that seems to me to fall into that category.
Is that your only one?
That's the only one I think that falls into the category of economic growth. I'm sorry about the rest, really. This is all really quite all unfortunate. I did want to ask one question, if you don't
Sure,
mind, in
please do.
general.
That's what we're here for.
Let's hypothetically, if we were to go with the original budget, hypothetically, and the taxes went where they went. It's 2024 for the 2025. But what happens in 2026, 27, 28, 29? I don't know the answer to that. Now, I'm not projecting doom and gloom, but I'm saying that there's factors that are still going to be beyond our control. There are union raises that are built in. There will always be, at some level, raises of payroll, and payroll is the biggest expense that the city has, it seems to me. Number two, though, all of this is because of our recent reval. And the revaluation is something that occurs at least, I mean, theoretically, it must occur within every 36 months. Let's presume that 36 months from now, it does not actually increase. The market somehow cools way off. And now the value of our 4,168 parcels, no, I misspoke. The value of our assessed parcels does not actually increase. Well, then we're going to have a huge gap all over again where our costs have increased exponential, and I have no idea what that percent would be. I don't have that kind of talent for that. But I say to you, if we don't do this awful stuff, that we're just really setting up for a future failure somewhere down the line. And that's what really makes me nervous. But I wish someone would teach me this. I wish someone could put some numbers to this. Mr. West, I know that you're capable of this, but I'm not going to drag you into the mud right now. But somewhere along the line, I would like to have that conversation about really what it is. I mean, this council's for 4 years. What are we really getting ourselves into? With really all respect to everyone here who's done all this work, and I know that nobody likes this conversation, but I'm concerned about that.
If I may, Mayor, I'm not going to answer your hypotheticals, but I do want to just acknowledge that many of the things that we're reducing, we're going to have to try to make gains on again, and acknowledge the fact that the costs on all of those items are going to continue to increase year over year. So that's one of the things with the proposed budget and with this budget, if you decide to go in this, is you're still playing a catch-up game. You're not even playing a maintenance game. We're playing catch-up to get there. And so that's just the cautionary piece, because we will be able to drop tax rate. You'll be able to slightly grow the levy, but we're going to have to continue. There will have to continue to be even harder conversations than this one, because when you look at these reductions and what the department heads did through our conversations, they are going to have to change some of their operations. There are things that the community may not like how we have to change those operations or do them differently, and we have to continue to have those conversations.
Councilor Lemon, do you have your hand up?
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the council for at least noticing that this 20% increase and coming back and working towards a reduction. I do think that the answers, as my fellow councilman here said, the answers are far beyond cut. And it really is one of the effects of this, I think, is to focus people on the urgency with which we approach other things that have to do with harder things, collaboration, consolidation, sharing of resources, conducting ourselves, engaging in discussions of schools district consolidations, things that we just don't enter into in the discussions, but they are the answer to the long-term government costs that are really hardest on the city of Geneva, because we're surrounded by a town that gives people the opportunity to live without contributing to the services they get. And I think this is the message from this to me is we have to finally confront 25 or 30 years of living beyond our means. And I know we did it for good purposes with all the best of extensions, but I think we're at a wall, and that we're acknowledging that not as much as I would this year. I think that this is the year, given the assessment change, that I would have stuck to the same amount as last year to really get us down to a more competitive level so that we could think of growing. This 6% increase is in some ways a status quo. It's what we've done for some years, and it's not the major pain that I think will come from doing some of the other things that we're, with some urgency, to think about the way the city and town duplicate services, duplicate materials, do other things, all in the name of Genevans. So I do appreciate the council's engagement and on what they saw as a clearly beyond reasonable approach to next year's budget.
Councilor Grimaldi, did you want to?
I just was gonna chime in because I do this every day, John. So if any of you guys want to sit down, we'll go to lunch someday. I can go through on how levies work and equalization, because doing an updated assessments really does not impact your taxes at all. It makes it where you may be paying what you should be paying, but it really doesn't make it go up or down or anything else. And we can go through and work it all out if you want.
Well-
So that you don't, I mean, probably we're gonna see the same thing like you said. I figure 3 or 4 years here. It depends on what happens. Prices could go up, prices could go down. You know, we saw it for a while in the late 2007, 8, prices actually dropped. And, I mean, we can work that out.
Oh, I appreciate the offer, and I would welcome that, and I recognize that time is very short, so we'd have to do it in the next 7 days.
Yeah,
If,
well-
but
7 minutes.
It's not gonna play into this. I mean, this year, she did a pretty good job. Prices went up a lot. That was, I mean, my last one went up 35%. So her 48, that was a little high, maybe, but Geneva had low numbers before, and
what will happen in 2030? What would that look like?
I mean, you never know, because you're betting on the realtors. If the
Well,
realtors are driving the assessments.
That's bad news.
I know it. I give them a hard time.
Strike that.
I mean, you don't know until you see what the sales are. You know, I'm doing one in Middlesex, at Canandaigua Lake. The people over there, I kid all the time, when I first got there back in '95, all the local people were complaining because they said all the doctors and lawyers were driving us off the lake. Now, when I go out there, all the doctors and lawyers are complaining that those guys from Maryland are driving us off the lake. So you never know what's gonna happen.
Well, let me ask you this, if you don't mind. As I mentioned earlier, I know that there's 4,168 parcels that paid this assessment as we see it. What will happen to those 4,168 parcels in terms of their ability to either
Well, they
pay
may
to
or
stay in
may
Geneva
not.
or desire to
They
stay?
may or may not go up. I mean, you really can't tell it, you're right there.
I think we're looking at a crystal ball here, and we
Yeah,
like
I
to
mean-
kind of stick to the
Okay.
current budget.
So-
All right, understood.
But
Yep.
the city does have the problem that more than 50% of the property is off the tax roll.
Right.
We have the problem that 52% of the residential housing is rental.
That's
I mean,
a huge
that's
problem.
That's a problem. So, I mean, we do look at those, but, I mean,
They can't hear you online.
oh, sorry. Sorry.
Can you say it all over again?
Yeah, start over.
No, thank you.
No, thanks. I mean, but it's funny because I came here, I worked in Victor before I came here. So when I got here, everybody's saying, oh, our taxes are so high, and I'm thinking, I left Victor where the average little three-bedroom ranch was paying $6,500 a year. And here I move here and we're paying $3,800. I'm thinking, hey, this isn't too bad. Everybody tells me, oh, we're way over, we're way over. Well, I was talking to a guy from Victor who has a nice house, and his taxes this year are $17,000. So there aren't too many in the city that are paying $17,000. So-
More than you think.
Well, there are a bunch.
On Main Street, in your ward?
That's its own one, but,
Are you suggesting, Mr. Grimaldi, that it's a perception that we might be misplaced, that it's expensive to live here?
I think that we have for the long run have not really watched how much they spend in the city. So, yes,
Okay.
I think this kind of thing is good. I'm glad that, you guys pushed it, we pushed it, and we got it down to 5%. 5% is not too bad. One of the towns in Yates County went up 30% this year.
Right.
It does happen, something comes up and, we've been pretty lucky, Joe hasn't had any major equipment failure or, like the little town I worked in, the highway garage burned down. And all of a sudden, all your trucks are gone.
That's a problem.
When you're paying $150,000 for a dump truck, it
Can I
could be a
reel you,
problem.
can I reel you in, Counselor?
Yes, sorry.
So you're looking at the 5%, that's your,
That's what I
yep,
think.
okay.
You want me to make a?
Counselor Gilat's poking me in the ribs over here. He's
Oh, okay.
waiting for his turn.
Get the gong.
This is the second time in council I forgot what the hell to say. I'm only kidding.
That's all right.
I think, I don't like it. I think all of us experience conversation with our residents. The number one thing in everybody's mind is taxes are too high, cut taxes, cut taxes. I even had an ex-council person yell at me, cut the taxes, which I thought was a little ridiculous. But anyway, but I think moving forward, it's a hard decision. We're not going to get any friends, that's for sure. But I think maybe this is a year we can start regrouping and maybe move forward with some things. I strongly feel that this council has to stay engaged with budget. This is not councils in the past, my perception, is that no discussion of budget until August, September. I think we need to stay engaged from day one. To leave her on the island by herself, I think is not fair. I think there's things we need to look into. I think we can look at our big brother who has more money than us, the town of Geneva. But I think we need to overlook him and start looking at the county and what they can do for us as far as helping us with revenue, helping us with expenses. And I'm all for that, and I'm interested in starting to go to some of those meetings and see what the hell's going on, and maybe we can get some input. Because we need that support, and we're not getting it. Everybody else is getting it. Everybody else is getting it but us. And us in the town, I think. I'm not sure about the town. Anyway, it's a tough decision. I think it's something we got to do, but we need to stay engaged, and we need to change the way things are going for next year. This is my 2 cents.
Counselor, do you have a preference before I go to Counselor Petropoulos?
I would like to stay at 6, but it's myself.
Okay. Counselor Petropoulos.
I think overall, this is a really good compromise, seeing as we started at 20, and we can't exactly do 0, so I'm fine with 5. And that's a 3/4 cut. My thought is we can adjust fire after the fact, and we're not, there are options. We can definitely adjust fire after the fact, but I agree with Councilor Gilat that we have to stay engaged with budget pretty much all the time. That's all I got.
Counselor Morocco, with your hand up? Okay. Do you have a preference, Counselor Morocco?
I don't have a preference, 5 or 6.
Okay. Counselor Whitfield,
Well, we haven't-
comments?
I'm sorry.
5%. I think this was better than the 21 or 20. So I know it's going to cause a lot of turmoil. However, Councilor Gilat said we're not going to have friends. I'm not worried about friends. I'm worried about the people. So say 5%.
Okay, so what I'd like staff to do, particularly the city manager and comptroller, to let me know how much time you would need, because I'd like to bring that back to the table for a vote, and I think the majority of council is directing for the 5% levy increase,
Okay.
and we'll have a recess in between.
So it's just the 5%, it's not adding the motion that Counselor
I've
Brennan.
only heard one person say that, not unless anybody else wants to jump on board for adding back in.
Okay.
We just
Okay.
want to make sure we get in there
Yep,
what
no,
we,
I appreciate
I
that.
hear you.
so a 5%,
I
what do we need, 10 minutes?
10 minutes, yeah.
Okay,
And then, just as a reminder, if you're going to do that, you also have a water budget, a water fund
Yep.
budget, and a sewer fund budget, and workers' comp,
Yep.
that you have to vote on all three of those separately.
and that's a good point. Before we
We can-
recess, would anybody like to make comments on the water or sewer? Because I'm pretty comfortable where they sit right now.
And we can bring resolutions for all of those up.
Okay.
And I'm 100% on those.
And just,
Do we have a list of what, how much is
I
the
was
water
fine on
fund
the
going
water
up?
and the sewer.
How much, I didn't think they were going up very much.
just for clarification too, the workers' comp, we cannot impact.
Correct.
So when that
No,
comes
that
to
comes
us,
from
it's
the
a,
county.
it's
So-
a
Goes on
solid
our
number
bill.
that we can
Um,
modify.
That used to be part of the regular
It's
rate.
a 5% spending increase on sewer and a 6.7 on water.
So they're right around where we normally would be.
Yep.
They were.
Council Lavin.
This is not strictly budget, but I would bring up at the next meeting maybe, and I'll work with council to require that management put in a process by which any increase in water or sewer use from the town comes before the council before it's granted to, for any projects in the town. And I'll work with, I talked to the manager earlier today, and she said, I'll work with
Legal
with
and figure-
legal
yep.
to come up with language. But the reason is that, well, I think we've been over it before, that they have more and more projects in the town that are gonna require more and more from us. And I think we're in a time when the negotiations have to be enriched.
Okay, so we're gonna look at 7:01 right now. We'll look at a 10-minute recess. We'll all come back at 7:11. Thank you very
Sounds
much.
nice.
Thank you.
the last few years. We're not there yet. We are challenged every year with trying to make the city of Geneva better. And I think, for me, those decisions of cut, and I know there's talks about shared services and increased revenues. My vision has always been to make the city of Geneva better and build it, and they will come, and they have. We've had a lot of private investors come into the city of Geneva. You take a good look at our downtown. That hasn't been done by tax money alone. It's been done by private investment, investing a lot of money into the city of Geneva and getting rewards for that investment. And I love when somebody visits or somebody hasn't been here in a while and they come and they say, geez, the city of Geneva has really improved. It's really nice to come back and see what's going on. You'll have your naysayers out there, but the general overall view of the city of Geneva is we have done a lot of great things and we're headed in the right direction. I am going to support this, but I am disappointed that we don't have more vision moving forward to keep the city of Geneva, and we're just maintaining at this point. So that's my soapbox story. Anybody else? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
To approve this resolution is the question
Yes,
here?
sir. Yes, sir.
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
No.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield? Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is the water fund budget, resolution on the water fund budget.
Okay, so similar to general fund, this is just one of the three major funds that the city has. The water fund proposed budget for 2025 is $3,316,999.
Need a motion?
Motion.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Petropoulos. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is a resolution approving the sewer fund budget.
So this would approve 2025 spending of $5,534,798.
Need a motion? Counselor Petropoulos, seconded by Counselor Peeler.
So moved.
Discussion?
Yeah, I want to make just
Yep.
a clerical
do.
update. Some of these say Nicole Wright as the city clerk. We probably should, just, it's, right? We can update them later.
Okay.
It's close.
It's
Real
close.
close.
Got the first name good.
It's 50/50,
Okay.
you're right.
Clerk, please call the roll on the sewer fund budget.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And the last one tonight is a resolution for approving the workers' compensation fund budget.
Thank you. So the workers' compensation budget, that is something that's given to us by Ontario County, and we have to approve it, put it on our tax bill as a line item, but nothing we can really do about that specific number, although we do have to approve it. That amount of spending in 2025 is $259,900.
Need a motion? Counselor Gilat, seconded by Counselor Morocco. Discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And again, my thanks to the city manager, the city comptroller, and staff for their hard work on this, and we look forward to 2025. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Counselor Peeler, seconded by Counselor Petropoulos. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This means you get next Wednesday off.